Today, we have some Starfield to talk about, specifically why I believe that we'll be seeing quite a nice little bit of gameplay at this year's Game Awards, and also discussing and hopefully dispelling some of these whispers and some rumors that have been circulating around about the possibility of Starfield being pushed back in a second delay to the second half of 2023. Why I really don't think fans should be all that concerned, despite what some members of the community are saying. In a parallel universe, somewhere adjacent, probably right next to ours, all of us would be sitting in the radiant, warm glow of Starfield's impending release in just 2 days, but unfortunately, this ain't that universe, ladies and gentlemen. We are stuck in the dark, decrepit, drafty halls of loneliness and isolation, feasting on whatever scraps Bethesda wants to throw our way when it comes to Starfield details. Specifically, crossing our fingers that one of these days we might get a concrete release date for Starfield. No, instead, we are stuck wandering around and watching the gameplay reveal for the 100th time, speculating on social media about why in the year 2033, male pattern baldness still hasn't been cured. Unless this man is using this hairstyle by choice, in which case, kudos to you for trying to stand out from the crowd. Respect. The moral of the story is it's been a long, difficult wait for more Starfield information. In fact, the last video that was released was only 3 weeks ago. Maybe we are getting a little bit impatient. In all seriousness, I have been seeing some rumors and some whispers circling around. It's kind of one of those things where, you know, in school, in grade school, when your teacher says, if you have a question, chances are somebody else has that same question. Well, in this case, somebody had the idea of a possibility of Starfield being delayed again, and turns out that a lot of people had similar thoughts, and one person started talking about it, discussing it on social media, and on Reddit, and Discord, and all different places, and then it started circling around a little bit more, and sure enough, a lot of people ended up having that same concern, or I hesitate to call it a concern because ultimately it's good for the game, but I've also seen content creators like Mr. Matty Plays entertain the possibility, I've seen Lone Vault Wander entertain the possibility, and now here I am entertaining the possibility as well. And the first thing that I do want to mention is that, of course, it is entirely possible that Starfield might see a second delay. If 2022 has taught any of us any single thing, it's that anything is possible, especially when it comes to games development. So if it does happen, of course, it's completely within the realm of possibility. But allow me to add some nuance to the conversation. If this is your line of thinking, I want to challenge it based on an interview from Phil Spencer 9 days ago on the YouTube channel Same Brain. Take a listen.
One thing we've definitely heard loud and clear is it's been too long since we've shipped kind of what people would say is a big first-party game. We can have our excuses on COVID and other things, but in the end, I know people invest in our platform and they want to have great games. We're excited about 2023. And we've talked about games that are coming, and those games are tracking well. We're kind of out of what COVID did to the production schedule. And as an industry, I think we're starting to, we have fewer games this holiday than we've had in a while. When you just think about the launches, you mentioned Call of Duty's coming, God of War's coming, which is great. Nintendo's had a good year, but I'd say in general, we've been a little light. But I look at 2023, and there's a great lineup of games coming that I'm excited about. Getting our first real Xbox first-party games out of Bethesda, having them ship with Redfall and Starfield will be a lot of fun.
Two things that you can really pull away from this interview. The first is that previous impediments towards games development, previous obstacles, mainly the pandemic, that has caused a lot of the delays that we've seen within the past 2 years, according to Phil, and again, this interview was 9 days ago as of recording, are no longer big issues when it comes to development, which is great news for projects currently in active development like Starfield and like Redfall, meaning that we likely won't see another delay coming. The second thing that he mentions is that those games are tracking well. Now, of course, he's going to say something like that, right? He's not going to say that these games are doing terrible. However, it does make me inclined to believe what he really means is that these games are on target to hit their deadlines, that these games are ready to release within the expected windows. And again, that's a whole 6 months, the first half of 2023, of Bethesda to have wiggle room between spacing out when Redfall might release, when Starfield might release. There's a lot of time for them to play around with, and I'm confident that they can make it. However, if that isn't enough of convincing for you, there's actually another interview coming from Skill Up on their Friends Per Second show, where Matt Booty talks about a little bit more of behind the scenes when it comes to Starfield and Redfall. There's some interesting things here. Take a listen.
I think there's going to be an awful lot of new stuff that Bethesda fans and Todd Howard fans have not seen brought to the game. And, I know just from checking in with them a bit, the team is, hard at work to get that thing all buttoned up and put together. I'm fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of the status reports and things. And it's just fun watching them kind of iterate through that level of polish on the game right now. And then we've obviously got Redfall from Arcane, and then as we start to look down the road on the calendar, obviously Starfield coming up. So
Matt Booty states that they're buttoning up Starfield. Bethesda's working on it, that they're going through a level of polish right now to get it ready. All things that are indicating the game is getting ready to launch. And this coincides with something we're going to talk about later, which is that development was nearly finished back in June of 2022. So stay tuned for that whole discussion. Anyway, nothing up into this date has actually really leaned into the idea that Bethesda is ready to delay the game, although there are some valid concerns and reasons why people might be thinking that way, and I want to go through a couple of them. The first major one that you're going to see is that Bethesda really isn't talking about this game. You look comparatively to a title like Redfall, where you've gotten brand new interviews, where you've gotten some new gameplay, where you've seen some new things about the game, and it shows that there's confidence, that there's a level of certainty that Redfall will be ready to release in the first half of 2023. And conversely, you look at something like Starfield, which has been pretty silent. Yes, we did get, I even made a joke about it earlier, that one little snippet of the Q&A series that Bethesda was seemingly going to start releasing, but that was about it. And even in that Q&A, the only new thing that technically we saw was the persuasion system, and for a lot of people it really wasn't that much to show off. And I think this is a root of where a lot of the concern starts to get raised, because why isn't Bethesda showcasing, especially because a lot of fans are of the mentality that Starfield needs to be marketed differently than Bethesda's typical titles. And this has already been proven by disproven, by Bethesda themselves. But a lot of people think because it's a new IP, because people aren't familiar with it, they need to talk about it more, they need to show more off about the game. And Bethesda themselves has proven this is not the case. And the reason why we know that is exactly how Bethesda handled the Microsoft Bethesda showcase. So I want to wind the clocks back all the way to May 12th of 2022. Not actually that long ago, but on May 12th, that is when we got the official announcement that Starfield was going to be delayed. This was just a month before the game was planned to be shown off at the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, and yet a month later, in June, I made a video where I discussed how the development of Starfield was close to being finished. And that was based off of a quote directly from Todd Howard, where at a media event he had stated, quote, "We are putting the finishing touches on Starfield, which is an incredible opportunity for us." 3 days later, we would have the Microsoft Bethesda showcase on June 12th, and we would see 15 minutes of Starfield gameplay. Keep in mind, this was during a time when, again, a lot of people were saying the same thing, that Starfield needs to be marketed differently, and yet Bethesda at that time was still sticking to a similar marketing strategy that they have in the past, where they wanted to show off the game in all of its glory, and then a couple months later, in an ideal situation, they would be able to release the game. That was their plan all along, and I think we're seeing something similar here, but I digress. This was during a time when a lot of fans were thinking that there was a possibility Starfield wouldn't show at the Microsoft Bethesda showcase. A lot of fans were thinking that if it did, we would only see maybe like a 2 to 3 minute trailer. Some people thought it would just be a cinematic trailer. There were a lot of people that did not have high expectations with what we would see at the event. There were a couple of us, myself included, that believed, yes, if Bethesda's going to show off this game, they're going to do the whole glorious shebang, right? They're going to show off Starfield if they want to show off the game. They're not going to wait. And the reason why is because Bethesda wanted to wait for a major gaming event, the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, where you have tens of millions of people that are tuning in to watch this thing. That's when they're going to show off a game like Starfield. And they did. And they showed the whole 15 minutes of gameplay. Now we're leading up to another massive gaming event, the Game Awards, and yet again, Bethesda has gone pretty radio silent. We did get the one video, and we haven't seen anything since. We also saw, again, there's parallels we can draw leading up to the Microsoft Bethesda showcase. We were getting these short little Into the Starfield videos, and yet a month before, where a lot of us were speculating we could get at least one more of these Into the Starfield videos, nothing. I even took the time to map out the cadence of these video releases to try to predict that, yes, it's very likely that we'll get something before the Xbox Bethesda showcase, and yet nothing. Now we have something almost completely parallel where Bethesda is showing off, or has shown off, one episode of this Q&A series, and now a month before, we haven't seen anything, even though I still think there's more time for them to do another one. Instead, what I speculate that Bethesda is doing is spending time to prepare some proper marketing materials in advance of the Game Awards. They're spending time to try to make a trailer, right? It takes time to sit down, have meetings, discuss what you're going to show off, what you're not going to show off, capture the footage, edit the footage. Why is it likely that Bethesda is going to show up at the Game Awards? Because again, this is one of the biggest opportunities that they have to get in front of a major audience, a strategy that Bethesda themselves have proven is what's most valuable to them. And sure enough, if you look back at the 2021 Game Awards, there was a viewership of 85 million people. 85 million people tuned in to the 2020 Game Awards. By comparison, the Starfield teaser trailer has 17 million, and the gameplay reveal itself only 3.5 million. So to have an opportunity where Bethesda can put their game in front of that massive of an audience is something that they're going to want to do. And what I am anticipating is that Bethesda's hunkering down, they're working on their Starfield footage and gameplay and whatever else they want to show off, and they are nailing down their release date as well, which I fully expect they're going to want to show off to this massive audience. And just to be clear, this falls in line exactly with Bethesda's typical marketing strategy, which is they can announce the game at the Game Awards with a release date, and then they can put it 5 months or maybe even the full 6 months to make it like right on the end of the first half of the year. They can put it out with that 5-month window, so we get the gameplay footage, and then several months later we actually are able to play the game. I know that it's already a bit different because we saw it at the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, but that doesn't mean that they can't try something similar here, and that's exactly the strategy that I think Bethesda is going with. We're getting the Q&A series. I expect more of the Q&A series. It doesn't really make much sense that they're just going to stop at one single video, and then on top of that, we also have the full stretch of marketing that Bethesda can pursue, where they do the bigger budget stuff, right? The trailers, the interviews, the TV spots, the YouTube ads, and all of that other marketing material that we sort of expect from a campaign. They can fit that in within the 5-month release window that they set themselves up for after the Game Awards happens. We're going to see Redfall ahead of Starfield, and it will probably fall within the first 3 months of 2023, and then the second 3 months of 2023 we're going to see the major Xbox flagship title of the year, which we all know is Starfield. But let me know your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree with me, and why, down in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.